Grand Marl Hotel towered in the heart of the city, its gleaming glass facade reflecting the golden afternoon sun like a modern-day fortress of wealth and power. Across the street, a sleek black luxury sedan rolled to a gentle stop. Inside, Ryan Carter sat in silence, his eyes fixed intently on the building. Unbeknownst to anyone, he was its true owner. It had been 5 years since he last set foot in this city, the place where he was born, where he grew up amid scarcity, struggling each day just to survive, before rising to build a global business empire. He hadn't returned in a blaze of glory with flashing cameras or media fanfare. No chauffeur opening his door, no red carpet, just a man returning home, carrying doubt in his mind and a quiet disappointment he hadn't yet named. "We've arrived, sir," the driver said softly, interrupting Ryan's stream of memories. "Thank you, James. I'll walk from here." Ryan stepped out, adjusted his plain button-down shirt and jeans, carefully chosen to be neutral. No designer labels, no luxury watches, nothing to hint at the billionaire net worth behind that modest appearance. He wasn't here to be noticed. He was here to observe, and sometimes the truth only reveals itself when you're a nobody. The evening breeze brushed across his face, now a little older and more weathered. At 42, years of navigating the global business arena had etched invisible marks onto him. Not wrinkles, but depth, and a gaze that had seen too much. Yet deep in those eyes still flickered the fire of a Southside kid, someone who once dreamed of a better world, not just for himself, but for everyone like him. The city had changed. So had he. In the past 5 years, Ryan had expanded into Asia's biggest financial centers, opened headquarters across Europe, and closed billion-dollar deals all through a web of anonymous holding companies. One of them had quietly acquired the Grand Marl 2 years ago. Not even the hotel's management knew his name. He took a deep breath, the scent of car exhaust, street food, and something harder to define, an aroma of memory soaked in the asphalt and air. In the distance, Southside lay still, just visible like a childhood ghost. Gentrification had swept through, but the cracks were still there, subtle and deep. And it was from there that the complaints had started. His phone buzzed in his pocket. It was Marcus, his trusted chief of operations. "Everything ready?" Ryan asked calmly. "Yes, sir. The legal documents are airtight. Your real identity is completely hidden. To them, you're just another potential guest." "And the other matter?" There was a pause. Marcus rarely hesitated. "The complaints online are growing. There's a pattern forming. Very concerning." Ryan's grip tightened around the phone. That quiet anger stirred again. At first, he had skimmed through a few negative reviews, nothing unusual. But then came the similarities. Patrons from working-class neighborhoods, especially Southside, being turned away, disrespected. The management's reports blamed policy violations or guest misconduct. But something didn't add up. "Send me everything you've got," Ryan ordered, ending the call. He began walking toward the hotel, but paused at a nearby cafe with a clear view of the Grand Marl entrance. He ordered an espresso, pulled out his laptop, and opened the report Marcus had just forwarded. Line by line, the words cut deeper. Dozens of complaints, neatly categorized by zip code, date, and issue type. And Southside, his old neighborhood, stood out like a glaring red flag. Guests being turned away for listing local addresses. A woman, Maria Lopez, 28, who saved for a year to celebrate her anniversary at the hotel's restaurant, was told there were no tables available. Yet she watched as other well-dressed couples were seated, couples with uptown addresses. What Ryan saw wasn't just poor service. He saw himself again, his younger self, turned away from places like this because he didn't belong. And this time, he wasn't here to ask for a seat. He was here to reclaim the table for everyone who'd ever been told they couldn't sit there. One complaint read, "They seated us by the kitchen, and barely acknowledged us the whole night while smiling non-stop at every tourist who walked in. I swear, I'm never coming back." Ryan read in silence, jaw tight. A recent video had gone viral online, a well-dressed black couple being stopped at the hotel lobby, asked repeatedly for ID and credit card verification. Meanwhile, white guests were checked in without question. That quiet fury surged again. Every word on that screen felt like a betrayal, not just of him, but of the city that raised him. The Grand Marl wasn't just any hotel. It bore the name of this city. It employed its people. It used infrastructure paid for by the taxes of everyday residents. If what he was reading was true, if his hotel was discriminating against locals, especially those from low-income areas, it was more than it was a punch in the gut to the very roots he came from. A local news app notification lit up his screen. Grand Marl Hotel under fire again for alleged discrimination against local residents. The article quoted Victoria Winters, the hotel's general manager. "We maintain the highest service standards for guests who align with the Grand Marl experience. We make no apologies for upholding a luxurious environment consistent with international expectations." Ryan felt heat rise along his neck. A luxurious environment. He knew exactly what that meant. The coded language, the veiled contempt. It wasn't a mission statement. It was a gatekeeping notice dressed in corporate speak. His hotel, his pride, had become a fortress that shut out people who looked like him, lived where he once lived, worked hard but didn't carry the right credit card. He shut the laptop, downed the rest of his now lukewarm espresso, and made a decision. Originally, he planned to quietly check in as a guest, observe, gather data. But now, he wanted to feel the impact directly. He wanted to be looked down on, ignored, judged, because only then could he truly understand how deep the rot had spread. Returning to the car, he told James to deliver his luggage to the downtown penthouse. From the trunk, Ryan pulled out an old, weathered backpack, carefully prepared. Inside, basic clothes, toiletries, a spare phone unlinked to any of his companies or assets. "I'll be unreachable for at least 24 hours. Only contact me if it's urgent," he instructed. James nodded. "Good luck with the inspection, sir." Ryan gave a thin smile. "Let's hope I won't need it. Let's hope I'm wrong." But as he slung the backpack over his shoulder and walked toward the Grand Marl's gleaming glass entrance, he already knew the truth. Something was wrong, something was broken, and he was about to walk straight into the heart of it. The doorman barely glanced his way. Ryan was dressed neatly. Clean shirt, khaki pants, worn sneakers. Presentable but unremarkable. A nobody. "Welcome to the Grand Marl," the doorman said in a flat tone, his gaze drifting past Ryan, scanning for someone else. Someone more important. Ryan nodded and stepped into the hotel lobby, where light from the grand chandeliers spilled across the marble floors, casting dazzling reflections like a stage set for the elite. Soft classical music played in the background, blending with the clinking of glasses from the bar and conversations in multiple languages. This was the heart of the hotel empire he had built, a quiet yet powerful kingdom of hospitality. And today, this very place would face the most unexpected audit it had ever seen. He walked to the front desk, where 3 sharply dressed receptionists stood behind the counter, perfectly groomed and poised. Their eyes scanned each guest, smiles growing wider in proportion to the wealth telegraphed by designer bags, high-end watches, and polished shoes. In front of Ryan, a couple clad in luxury brands wheeled matching Gucci luggage. The staff greeted them with champagne, warm welcomes, and bows fit for royalty. Then came Ryan's turn. The receptionist's smile flickered for a moment. Her eyes dropped to his worn-out backpack and the modest credit card he laid on the counter, one without a platinum logo or exclusive emblem. "Good afternoon. I'd like to book a room for 2 nights, Ryan said calmly but firmly. He was ready. ready to give his childhood address in Southside when asked. The place where dreams once felt out of reach, where a boy had once stood in shadowed alleys imagining a future where he could walk into places like the Grand Marl without being turned away. And yet, it seemed that same hotel had now become the very gatekeeper that once kept him out. Vanessa. That's what her name tag read. Picked up his card between two perfectly manicured nails as if it might stain her fingers. She looked at him with unmasked appraisal. "Do you have a reservation, sir?" she asked, voice smooth but cold. "No, but if you have availability, I'd be happy to book now." Vanessa raised a perfectly shaped brow, skepticism clear on her face. "The Grand Marl is quite exclusive. We usually require advance reservations. I understand, but if there's a room available, I'll pay now." She exhaled lightly, then began typing on her keyboard with thinly veiled reluctance. "Name, please?" "Ryan Carter." He used his real name, an intentional test. He already knew it wouldn't appear in any of their systems. He had made sure of it. "Your address." Ryan slowly recited the address of the house where he grew up, buried deep in the struggling Southside neighborhood. Within seconds, Vanessa's typing slowed. She glanced at her colleague. A silent exchange passed between them. "On the moment, please." He stepped away from the counter and approached a man who had just emerged from the office behind. His suit was tailored to perfection, and every silver strand of hair was slicked back with precision. He stared at Ryan from across the lobby with an expression that was part scrutiny, part dismissal. Just then, the front doors swung open behind Ryan, and a flashy couple entered, looking like they'd stepped off the set of a luxury commercial. The woman, tall and striking, raised her phone at the perfect angle for a vlog. "Checking in at the Grand Marl, you guys. Don't even try if you don't have the right connections." Her boyfriend, with artfully styled hair and a blinding white smile, added, "Only the best for my queen's birthday. 50,000 followers means 50,000 thread count sheets. Right, babe?" Ryan watched the receptionists closely. The moment the couple walked in, it was like someone flipped a switch. Their posture straightened, smiles brightened, and every gesture became more eager, even though the couple's loud voices disrupted the previously serene space. The silver-haired man approached Ryan with a practiced smile that didn't reach his eyes. His name tag read, Jeffrey Pierce, General Manager. "I'm sorry, sir, but it appears we're fully booked tonight." Ryan glanced at the screen behind the counter. It clearly showed rooms still available. "That's odd, because your staff was just in the process of—" "There must be some misunderstanding," Pierce cut in smoothly. "The Grand Marl caters to a very specific clientele. We typically don't accommodate walk-ins, especially from certain areas." Each word landed like a punch to the past. "I don't understand," Ryan said evenly. "Are you refusing service because I'm from Southside?" Pierce's smile tightened. "Sir, we have particular standards. Our guests expect a certain atmosphere. I'm prepared to pay the full rate. I have valid ID and a credit card. What's the real issue?" Behind them, the influencer woman had stopped pretending. Her phone was openly recording the exchange now. Her partner snickered. "Security," Pierce called out, with all the subtlety of ordering a cocktail. Two broad-shouldered men in dark suits emerged from either side, calm but unmistakably imposing. "This isn't necessary," Ryan said, his voice low and controlled. "I'm simply trying to book a room. A hotel should never handle situations like this." Pierce remained icy. "We reserve the right to refuse service, and our policy clearly states we do not accept walk-ins from your stated area." The influencer whispered into her phone, "OMG, drama at the check-in counter. Somebody didn't get the dress code memo." Her boyfriend burst into laughter. "Bro, there's a Motel 6 like 5 blocks down." Ryan felt every gaze in the lobby land on him. Some looked away, pity in their eyes. Others raised brows in judgment, and a few looked entertained. For a moment, he wasn't a billionaire. He was just that kid again, being told, "You don't belong here." The security guards approached, each placing a firm hand on his arm. Not rough, but firm. "Absolute, this way, sir," as they led him toward the exit. Ryan heard the influencer couple behind him. "See that? That's how the Grand Moral keeps its class. Respect. Pro tip: if you live on the wrong side of town, maybe skip this place." Outside, on the sidewalk, the guards released him with exaggerated politeness. "We recommend the Westfield Hotel, sir. It may be more suitable." Ryan stood there, staring back at the doors he had just been escorted through. Doors to the empire he had built with his own hands, and in that moment, he wasn't just angry. He was done being silent. The doorman, the one who hadn't even bothered to open the door for him earlier, now watched Ryan with a look of quiet satisfaction as he was escorted out. Ryan stood still on the sidewalk. Every word, every glance, every gesture from moments ago felt like it had been etched into his skin. He had prepared himself for discrimination, but he hadn't imagined it would be this blatant, this unapologetically raw. It was a form of cruelty that didn't need to scream to be heard, because it was subtle and deep. It was humiliation disguised as politeness, and in that moment something within him ignited. Not just anger, but resolve. No one had the right to build an empire on the shame of others, especially not under his name. As soon as he stepped away from the hotel, Ryan pulled out his phone. The influencer couple's video capturing the moment he was refused service and escorted out was already going viral. In just minutes, it had racked up hundreds of shares. A short clip, only a few seconds long, but it carried the full weight of a truth he had only suspected. The caption read, "Watch this guy get kicked out of the MAR." Beneath the video, a flood of comments poured in like a broken dam. Some were cruel and mocking, but many others were outraged, calling the moment exactly what it was: classism, racism, systemic exclusion. Ryan slipped the phone back into his pocket, his gaze now steeled. In that moment, he knew this wasn't just about a few unprofessional employees. This was systemic rot, an ideology woven into the hotel's culture. And it had grown, unnoticed, under the very brand he had helped build. He turned his back on the Grand Moral, not defeated, but burning with quiet determination. What had happened wasn't just a moment of disrespect. It was a betrayal of everything he had believed in. And if the rot started from within, then from within, it would be torn out. That evening, Ryan sat in the penthouse apartment downtown. The space was expansive, modern, and oppressively silent. He stared at his laptop. The video kept climbing in views. The comments section had become a battleground. Amid the chaos, Ryan saw a reflection of himself. Once a poor kid with no seat at the table, now face to face with the machine he had unknowingly built. Marcus entered, setting down a fresh cup of coffee. "Are you sure you want to go through with this?" he asked, concern clear in his voice. "One call from your legal team and this whole thing disappears." "No," Ryan cut him off firmly. "If I reveal myself now, they'll clean up the scene, stage a flawless PR play, and blame a few bad apples. I need to see how deep this really goes. Who knows about it? Who's complicit? And who's just staying silent out of fear?" Marcus nodded slowly. "The reservation under Thomas Reynolds is confirmed. Executive suite, full VIP access. One of our people will check in and hand off the key card." An hour later, Ryan returned to the Grand Moral through the side entrance. Hat pulled low, dark jacket zipped up. He avoided the main lobby, the site of his public humiliation, and instead entered through the underground parking garage. There, David, his longtime business partner, was waiting, having completed the check-in under the alias Thomas Reynolds. "Good luck," David said, handing him the key card with a pat on the shoulder. "Try not to buy the hotel again while you're in there." Ryan chuckled despite himself. "No promises." The executive suite on the 32nd floor opened onto a panoramic view of the city bathed in sunset. From here, Ryan could clearly see the divide, the glittering skyline of prosperity fading into the shadows of Southside, where he had once lived, once dreamed of escaping. And now, standing high above it all, he realized he had become the owner of the very walls that separated them. All afternoon, Ryan moved silently through the hotel. He passed through the front desk area, the main restaurant, the rooftop bar, eyes open, ears sharp. Every detail, every interaction was a piece of a much larger puzzle. At the restaurant, couples of color or those with local addresses were seated near the kitchen or restrooms, despite multiple prime tables remaining empty. At the rooftop bar, guests with regional accents or less expensive attire were served more slowly, sometimes outright ignored. This wasn't coincidence, it was policy, it was structured. Late that night, Ryan returned to his suite. He opened his laptop and began typing notes, his observations, his emotions, when a soft knock interrupted him. "Housekeeping," called a young female voice from outside. Ryan opened the door to find a young woman standing next to a cleaning cart. Her name tag read, Elena. She looked startled to find the room occupied. "I'm so sorry, sir. The system showed this room as vacant for cleaning. I can come back later." "It's fine," Ryan said gently. "I was just heading out for dinner." As he turned to leave, he noticed Elena glance quickly down the hallway, then step just inside the doorway. Not intrusively, but like she was trying to stop him from leaving. "Mr. Reynolds," she said softly, barely above a whisper. Her eyes flickered with something more than hesitation. It was fear, and the courage to move past it. "Could I speak with you privately for a moment?" she asked, her voice barely audible, her eyes filled with urgency. Ryan raised an eyebrow, part curious, part cautious. He stepped back, letting her push the cleaning cart inside and closed the door behind them. She turned to face him, gaze locked. "You're not really Thomas Reynolds, are you?" The question made Ryan straighten slightly, his expression hardening. "What makes you say that?" Elena inhaled slowly, choosing her words with care. "I handle VIP guest profiles. The real Thomas Reynolds stayed here once. He's in his 70s, not you." She paused, then added, "And I saw you today, at the front desk, being turned away." Ryan stayed silent, watching her, impressed but cautious. "You're very observant, Elena." "I've worked here for 3 years, she said, offering a tired smile. "Long enough to notice who gets treated well and who doesn't." "And why?" Her voice softened. It felt like she was letting go of something she'd carried alone for too long. "It's not random, you know," she said quietly. "I've been documenting it. The people from poor neighborhoods, people of color, people who don't dress a certain way, they get worse treatment, or they get turned away. It's not about individual bias, it's systematic." A flicker of hope sparked in Ryan, not because he had more evidence, but because someone inside was brave enough to speak. "Lemmy, are you telling me this?" he asked. "Because I think you're investigating it too. And because you were treated the way they treat people from my neighborhood every day." She pulled a folded piece of paper from her pocket. This wasn't supposed to be shared, but a manager left it in the print room. Ryan unfolded the document. It was printed on Grand Morrow letterhead, an internal memo, title, "Guest Screening Guidelines, Preserving Our Exclusive Atmosphere." Below the memo was a list of zip codes, 7 districts in the city, all low-income areas. Included among them was South Side, where Ryan had grown up. At the bottom of the page was a clearly printed signature, Jeffrey Pierce. Beneath it, a handwritten note, approved by Victoria Winters, per Preston Development Interests. Ryan's brow furrowed. That name, Preston Development, he knew it well. a notoriously aggressive real estate firm, infamous for stealth acquisitions, market manipulation, and long-suspected involvement in redevelopment schemes that displaced working-class neighborhoods. "Preston?" he asked, keeping his tone steady. Elena nodded. "They've been buying up a lot of property around the hotel. There are rumors someone on the hotel's executive team is working with them." She lowered her voice, worried someone might be listening. "Most of the staff just follow orders. But people like me, we can't keep staying silent. There are couples who save all year just to celebrate something special here, and they get turned away or treated like intruders." A sharp knock startled them both. "Elena," came a cold female voice from outside. "Why is this room taking so long?" Elena went pale. "Just finishing up, Ms. Winters," she called, trying to keep her voice steady. Ryan acted instantly. He ruffled the bed linens, turned on the bathroom faucet, staging the room to look recently used. "Thank you for the excellent service," he said loudly, making sure the hallway could hear. The door opened, and in stepped Victoria Winters, hotel director. Her scrutinizing gaze swept the room before landing on Elaine. "Mr. Reynolds," she said with a syrupy fake smile. "I apologize if housekeeping disturbed you." "Not at all," Ryan replied with a calm but knowing grin. Elena was giving a very thorough overview of the hotel's services. Victoria nodded stiffly, then led Elena out of the room. But as she turned, Elena glanced back at Ryan, her eyes silently pleading. A look that said, "Don't let this go. Don't let the truth disappear." Ryan looked down at the memo in his hand. Proof, undeniable. This wasn't negligence. It wasn't a few rogue employees. It was a deliberate strategy. A system of exclusion, planned and formalized to serve Preston's real estate interests. He picked up his phone and placed a secure call. "Marcus, I need everything you can find on Preston Development. Land purchases around the hotel, connections to Victoria Winters and Jeffrey Pierce. There's something much bigger at play here." As night fell over the city, Ryan stood at the window, staring out over the lights of downtown. They blurred against the glass, muted by the weight of what he now knew. The rot inside Grand Marl was spreading. Beyond the hotel, infecting the surrounding community like a silent virus. He looked once more at the memo before setting it down on the desk. Elena had risked everything to bring him the truth, and he silently vowed she wouldn't face the consequences alone. Tomorrow, he would go deeper. He would tear the mask off this entire operation. Ryan picked up the hotel phone and called the front desk. "I'd like to reserve a meeting room for tomorrow afternoon, large enough for the entire management team to attend." The storm was coming, and this time, it wasn't coming from outside. "I believe they won't want to miss what I have to say tomorrow morning." Morning light spilled into Ryan's suite, casting golden streaks across his desk, where stacks of open files lay scattered. He studied the documents Marcus had sent overnight, and what he found made his initial suspicions look tame by comparison. "Preston Development," he muttered, scrawling on his tablet. "Owned by Charles Preston, former hedge fund manager turned real estate baron. Over the past 3 years, Preston had quietly acquired dozens of properties around the Grand Marl, targeting especially locally owned businesses and residential units in areas with high gentrification potential. In other words, neighborhoods where low-income families were most vulnerable to displacement." A knock interrupted his thoughts. Ryan opened the door to find Elena, this time holding a stack of towels. "Housekeeping," she announced loudly for cover, then whispered as she stepped inside, "I have more information." She quickly placed the towels in the bathroom, then returned, eyes alert. "Here, you requested the meeting room. Ms. Winters called an emergency management meeting. I overheard them. They're worried. They know someone's investigating." "Did they say why?" "No. But I heard Pierce say something about protecting the deal with Preston at all costs." She hesitated, then pulled a folded stack of printouts from her pocket. "I found these in the copy room. They're printed emails. Between Jeffrey Pierce, Victoria Winters, and someone named Charles Preston, Ryan took the papers and began reading, each paragraph carved deeper into his anger. It wasn't just exclusionary service. It was an orchestrated strategy. The emails outlined a plan. Grand Marl would intentionally make locals feel unwelcome, cultivating an atmosphere of exclusivity. That hostility would drive down interest and economic activity in the neighborhood, allowing Preston to swoop in and buy properties for below-market rates. One email from Charles Preston himself made Ryan clench his fists. The more we isolate these neighborhoods from their luxury anchor points, the faster property values will decline. Keep up the great work making locals feel unwelcome. Every person you turn away is potentially another property we can acquire at a discount. This isn't just business, Ryan said quietly. This is a covert purge, an assault on the community. Elena nodded gravely. I see it every day. The cafe across the street, family-run for over 30 years, was forced to shut down last month. The hotel suddenly banned guests from ordering deliveries there. Their business dropped 60% in a week. Preston bought the building days later. Ryan had already checked the acquisition records. The purchase was completed for 30% below market value. Elena, he said, his voice softening. This is bigger than we thought. I know, she replied. They spread rumors, say the local shops are unsanitary, tell guests to avoid certain streets, then steer them to global chains. Preferred partners with the hotel. Ryan's phone buzzed. A message from Marcus. Found more connections. Victoria Winters received $180,000, 0 cents, in consulting fees from a Preston shell company last year. Pierce got a similar amount. Ryan gripped the phone tighter in his hand. In that moment, everything became painfully clear. The hotel he owned had been weaponized as a tool for gentrification. The executives he had entrusted with power were trading away human dignity for personal profit. He turned to Elena. You've done what very few have the courage to do. And I promise, you won't be left behind. Elena's eyes shimmered, but her expression was resolute. She nodded once and quietly stepped out. Ryan watched her go, then turned back to the desk. He gathered the stack of documents. Undeniable evidence of a conspiracy powered by greed, influence, and callous disregard for others. He picked up the hotel phone. Hello, I'd like to book the meeting room for this afternoon, he said, his voice no longer that of an anonymous guest, but of a man about to shake the entire foundation of the institution. It needs to be large enough to fit the entire management team. This time, Ryan wasn't here to investigate. This time, he was here to deliver judgment. All the vile pieces had fallen into place. This wasn't about poor service or unconscious bias. It was a calculated high-level plan designed to restructure an entire neighborhood by pushing out its residents, gutting its local businesses, and lining the pockets of a privileged few. Feeding on the collapse of a community. I could lose my job for showing you this, Elena had whispered earlier, eyes brimming but unwavering. But I can't stay silent. People here are losing their livelihoods, their homes. This stopped being just a job. This is about conscience. Why did you trust me? Ryan asked, sincerity in his gaze. Elena offered a faint, tired smile. Because yesterday they treated you like they treat people from my neighborhood every day. And you didn't act like the others. You listened, you noticed, and you asked the right questions. Ryan nodded, a quiet storm brewing in his chest. Thank you for your courage, Elena. I promise it won't go to waste. After she left, Ryan began preparing for the biggest move of all. The meeting room had been booked for 3 p.m., the perfect stage for the truth to be laid bare. But before that, he needed one final piece of the puzzle. All morning, Ryan moved through the hotel openly, no longer hiding. In the business center, he accessed public transaction records and discovered that Preston Development's property acquisitions aligned perfectly with Grand Marl's exclusionary policies toward locals. At the bar, he overheard Pierce instructing the bartenders, "Slow down service for the locals. Raise the minimum tabs so they don't linger." At the concierge desk, Ryan watched as hotel staff steered guests away from vibrant local businesses, instead recommending international chains affiliated with Preston. By early afternoon, he had compiled overwhelming proof of a coordinated discrimination campaign, not just degrading the guest experience, but strangling the economic life of the neighborhood where he had grown up. At 2:30, Ryan returned to his suite. He opened his suitcase and took out a precisely tailored Tom Ford suit, the armor of a man no longer hiding. Adjusting his tie, he made 3 phone calls, one to his legal team, one to James with detailed instructions on who to bring to the hotel, and a final call to a trusted friend at the city's largest news outlet. "Are you sure you want to handle it this way?" Marcus asked, voice tinged with concern. "Marcus," Ryan replied without hesitation, "this isn't about poor leadership anymore. This is about organized betrayal. They've been enriching themselves by destroying my community. They didn't choose subtlety, so neither will I." At exactly 2:55 p.m., Ryan Carter, now the image of a poised, powerful businessman, stepped into the elevator. His eyes reflected the resolve of someone who had come not to make peace, but to make change. The same 2 security guards who had once gripped his arms and escorted him out now held the elevator doors open, bowing slightly. "Good afternoon, sir," one of them said respectfully. "Here for the meeting?" Ryan nodded, his tone even, calm. "Yes. I believe they're expecting me." The guard smiled politely. "This way, sir." As he walked down the hallway toward the grand meeting room, Ryan's phone buzzed. A message from James. "Media has entered through the service entrance as requested. Elena has been reassigned temporarily to a different department for her safety." Ryan paused just outside the ballroom doors, peering through the glass. Inside, the hotel's management team was assembled. Victoria Winters was busy organizing materials. Jeffrey Pierce paced, checking his watch anxiously. Department heads sat in neat rows by rank. None of them knew this meeting wasn't about quarterly performance or marketing forecasts. It was about reckoning. Brian adjusted his tie one last time, took a steady breath, and stared through the glass. In just a few minutes, the entire executive staff of the Grand Marl would learn that the man they humiliated and threw out was the true owner of everything they stood in. And this time, silence would not be an option. "Are the press in position?" Ryan asked quietly, his eyes locked on the closed doors. "Yes, sir," James confirmed. "Elena brought them through staff corridors. They're standing by for your signal." Ryan took a breath, straightened his shoulders. "Then let's not keep them waiting." He pushed open the grand double doors, walking in with measured confidence, his gaze like steel. He wasn't the storm, he was the reckoning. The room fell silent. All eyes turned toward him. Confused, startled, Jeffrey Pierce stepped forward with a faint smile, which vanished as recognition dawned. "Welcome, sir. We're so honored to—" "Mr. Pierce," Ryan interrupted smoothly, "perhaps you'd like to explain to your team why you kicked me out of this hotel yesterday." Pierce went ghostly pale. The lines in his face tightened as the truth hit him. A sharp gasp came from the back, Victoria Winters unable to hide her shock. "You're the man from yesterday, from South Side," Ryan finished for her, nodding. "Yes, but that's not all I am." He gave James a signal. Immediately, folders were handed out to each manager present. As they opened them, confused murmurs began to ripple through the room. "My name is Ryan Carter. I'm the actual owner of the Grand Marl. Not through the management company you report to, but through the holding corporation behind it all." His voice was low, but it rang out like a wake-up call. All eyes locked on him, stunned. And for the past 2 days, I've seen firsthand how you treat people from certain neighborhoods. People you apparently consider unworthy of setting foot in this place. Pierce tried to regain composure. Mr. Carter, there's clearly been a misunderstanding. If you'd just allow me to explain. Explain? Ryan raised an eyebrow. Do you mean these policies? He clicked the remote. On the big screen appeared the internal memo listing zip codes labeled as undesirable. The room went completely still. Or do you mean your little partnership with Charles Preston, where you created a hostile environment to drive locals away so Preston could scoop up real estate on the cheap? Victoria Winters stepped forward, her voice urgent. Sir, these are complex issues. They need to be understood in context. I have all the context I need. Ryan cut her off coldly. The next slide showed email exchanges between Pierce, Winters, and Charles Preston, along with 6-figure consulting fees funneled through a Preston shell company. You know what we call this in legal terms? Ryan turned to face them. Collusion. Corporate corruption. The rear doors opened. Elena entered with several reporters, and camera lights lit up across the room. Every lens pointed to where Ryan stood. What the hell is this? Pierce stammered. Transparency? Ryan replied simply. He turned to face the entire leadership team. 3 days ago, I returned to this city. The city where I grew up, to check on the hotel I purchased 2 years ago. I'd heard troubling rumors about discrimination against locals, so I came to see for myself, wearing regular clothes and giving my childhood address in Southside. I was met with contempt, denied service, humiliated in public, and escorted out by security. From a hotel I own, Ryan pulled out his phone and played the viral video of the incident. The screen filled with footage of him being thrown out amid mocking laughter. This isn't poor service. This is systematic discrimination, deliberately designed to create a divide between this hotel and the very community it sits in. He paused, letting the silence settle. A strategy to manipulate property values, to enrich yourselves by pushing others into desperation. No one spoke. There was nothing left to hide. Mr. Winters, you're both terminated, effective immediately. Winters stepped back, stunned. You can't. I can, and I just did. Ryan pointed to his legal team. You'll be escorted to collect your personal belongings and leave the premises. The severance packages detailed in your folders are more generous than you deserve, contingent on your cooperation with the investigation. Then he addressed the rest of the room. For those of you who were simply following orders without understanding the bigger picture, today is your chance to make a new choice. Embrace the new vision for this hotel, or leave. The Grand Mar will no longer be a private playground for the wealthy, or a weapon for gentrification. He nodded to the reporters still filming. I grew up just 5 miles from here. I know what it feels like to be judged by your zip code instead of your character. I built my business not on background, but on action. And today, your actions have betrayed the very community this hotel is supposed to serve. Just as security began escorting Winters and Pierce out, the ballroom doors burst open. The influencer couple from the previous day stormed in, live streaming as they moved. OMG, you guys. Massive drama at the Moral. But the woman froze mid-sentence when she saw Ryan standing on stage. Wait, weren't you the guy who got... Yes, Ryan replied with a cold smile. I'm the man you mocked in your video. I'm also the owner of this hotel. He paused, locking eyes with her camera lens. Maybe you should update your followers? The couple backed away, visibly shaken, unable to respond. Oh, and by the way, Ryan added, voice calm but cutting, since you seemed to enjoy documenting my humiliation, feel free to keep filming. Let the world see what real accountability looks like. He turned back to the remaining staff, his expression softening but not losing its firmness. The Grand Mar wasn't just built on this land. It was born from this community. And if it wants to survive, it must reflect the very best of that community. Its diversity, its resilience, and a spirit of hospitality that knows no bias. Ryan scanned the silent room, finally letting his gaze rest on Elena, the one who had stepped out of the shadows to speak the truth. "Monsieur Elena," he said, gently but with gravitas. "You're one of the few here who lived the values this place was supposed to stand for." She stared back, eyes wide with surprise and emotion. "And starting today," he continued, "you are officially the Grand Marl's new Director of Community Relations." Elena's breath caught. You're really the owner?" Ryan nodded warmly. "I am. And your first assignment, help me rebuild the bridges this hotel so carelessly burned with the neighborhood it once looked down on." Outside the ballroom, the influencer couple's newest video was already going viral again, but this time with a drastically different caption. "OMG, you guys. The man kicked out of the hotel yesterday is the owner." As local news crews captured the unfolding scene, Ryan stood at the center of what was once a monument to exclusion. Now he was transforming it into a symbol of hope and justice. Not for revenge, but to prove that excellence and humanity could indeed coexist, and that no zip code should ever determine someone's worth. The reckoning had passed. Now came the rebirth. 3 months after that fateful day, the Grand Marl pulsed with new life. The once cold and exclusive lobby now buzzed with color, language, and laughter from every corner of society. The walls now displayed artwork by local artists, rotating monthly by theme, each piece offering an authentic slice of city life. The once stiff lounge had transformed into a welcoming space, filled with plush chairs that encouraged conversation between travelers and locals alike. Staff no longer moved through the lobby with apprehension, but with genuine smiles and warm, open eyes. Ryan stood by the entrance, arms crossed, his gaze calm as he observed the transformation. A change born from pain, but ending in healing. At first, occupancy rates dipped, as expected after a major scandal. But then the numbers surged, not just because of marketing efforts, but because the community returned. They didn't come for photos under the crystal chandeliers. They came because they felt welcomed. Lena walked over, a tablet in hand, her smile radiant, like the hotel itself had brought a part of her back to life. "The community dinner series is fully booked for the entire week," she reported. "And Mr. Chin's cooking class from the Southside Noodle Shop has a wait list of 50. Ryan chuckled. "Any news from the apprenticeship program?" 17 new applications this week. The high school principal across the street says students are thrilled. A lot of them just realized they can pursue a hospitality career without an expensive degree. She scrolled through her notes. "Oh, and the Small Business Alliance sends their thanks for letting them use the conference room for their quarterly meetings." The Marl Mentorship Program had become the new heart of the hotel. They hired, trained, and paid residents from all over the city, especially those once overlooked by the old regime. The fresh faces in Grand Marl uniforms now reflected the diverse mosaic of the city itself, a place that no longer hid its differences, but celebrated them. "Mr. Carter?" The young staff member approached, full of enthusiasm. "There's a family at the front desk inquiring about the community rate. Their daughter just got accepted into college." Ryan smiled, eyes lighting up with true joy. "Make sure they get the full celebration package. This is a milestone they'll never forget." "Champagne for the parents, sparkling cider for the daughter," Ryan instructed, his gaze both warm and unwavering. The staffer smiled. "Already taken care of, sir." It wasn't just a kind gesture. It was the hotel's new philosophy, a revolutionary pricing model. Higher rates for business travelers and affluent guests helped subsidize deeply discounted packages for locals celebrating life's milestones, and surprisingly, the model proved more profitable than anyone expected. The story of a once discriminatory hotel becoming a beacon of equity spread quickly. From neighborhood corners to national media. Near the bar, Ryan noticed a familiar face. The male half of the influencer couple who had mocked him months ago. The man hesitated, then walked over. "Mr. Carter, I just wanted to apologize, sincerely." His voice had lost its smugness, replaced with genuine remorse. "What I did that day was cruel and thoughtless. I've done a lot of reflecting since it went viral." Ryan studied him, calm and steady. Apology accepted. He glanced around. "Your girlfriend didn't come with you." "Yes, we broke up. After the fallout, I realized a lot of things." He looked around the now vibrant hotel. "What you've done here is incredible. That reveal video, it's got over 7 million views now." "Yeah," Ryan replied dryly. "I'm aware." But what mattered more was the emotional wave the video had triggered. It didn't just reshape the hotel's image. It opened a new chapter of healing and accountability. "Actually, I'm here today for another reason," the influencer continued. "I've shifted my content. I'm focusing on businesses with ethical practices. I'd like to cover what you've done here at the Grand Mall. Not the drama, but the transformation." Ryan considered this for a moment, then nodded. "Talk to Elena. If she approves the concept, I'll consider it." Outside, workers were installing a new sign above the hotel entrance. "The Grand Mall, a place where everyone belongs." Beneath it, a plaque honored local businesses that had served the neighborhood for generations. The Grand Morrow's transformation had triggered a domino effect. After Ryan severed all ties with Preston Development and publicly exposed their predatory practices, other property owners followed suit. Preston now faced multiple lawsuits and federal investigations. But what made Ryan most proud was the Small Business Recovery Fund his legal team had created, using settlement money from Preston to support those who had once been displaced. That family-run cafe, it had reopened, right inside the hotel's ground floor, serving locals and guests with the same care and dignity. "Elena," Marcus called out, rushing over with the latest financial report. "Quarterly revenue is up 23% compared to last year, even with our reduced pricing tiers." He smiled. "Turns out, treating people with dignity is also good business." Elena nodded. "Our biggest problem now is the event waitlist, especially weddings. Couples who never imagined affording this place are now booked into next year." Ryan grinned. "And the business incubator? The first 6 entrepreneurs move into their co-working spaces next week," Elena replied. "They're already paired with senior staff mentors." As they walked down the hallway, Ryan spotted something that truly warmed his heart. A family from Southside, the neighborhood where he grew up, being greeted by name and welcomed with a genuine smile. No judgment, no glances, just pure hospitality. Outside, a city councilwoman was giving an interview. "The Grand Mall model is redefining what luxury looks like in diverse communities," she said. "It proves that excellence and inclusion aren't contradictions, they're complements." Inside his new office, no longer some distant HQ, but right here, within the hotel, Ryan quietly read the latest community impact report. 70% of new hires from previously blacklisted neighborhoods. 38 local business partnerships signed. Ranked top 3 wedding venue in the city, across all income levels. That evening, Ryan prepared to speak at the first ever Community Champions Gala. He paused by a new exhibit wall, photographs chronicling the neighborhood's evolution over decades. An elderly woman stood nearby, her eyes glistening. "I grew up just 3 blocks from here," she said, unaware she was speaking to the hotel's owner. "Never thought I'd feel welcome in a place like this." "Times change," Ryan replied softly. "Not unless someone changes them," she said with a small smile before walking away. Ryan stepped onto the main stage. Under soft golden lights, he looked out at a room full of the city's true fabric. Philanthropists beside volunteers, CEOs beside laundromat owners. "Welcome to the Grand Mall," he began. "A hotel that finally lives up to its name, not because of its opulence, but because it embraces the full richness of humanity. Peace doors will never again close on someone because of how they speak, dress, or where they live. He glanced toward Elena, confidently coordinating staff, her journey from housekeeping to executive leadership, a living testament to the vision he had always believed in. We often define luxury as something rare and unreachable, Ryan continued. But the greatest luxury I've ever known is being treated with dignity, no matter who you are or where you come from. And that is what the Grand Marl will always stand for. Outside, the hotel lights spilled across the street, not as a cold glow reserved for privilege, but as a beacon of hope, a promise that institutions can change if the people who lead them are brave enough to begin.